I am Morgan Reynolds, 32, founder of Reynolds Interiors in Chicago. 8 years of building my design business from nothing, and 10 years with Brian, 6 of them married. I thought we had the perfect life until I discovered he was sleeping with Rebecca, my business partner of 4 years. Brian left me for her, destroying both my marriage and my business partnership in one devastating blow. But karma has a way of collecting debts. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you want to see how I rebuilt my life after the ultimate betrayal. Brian and I met during our junior year at Northwestern University. I was studying interior design, and he was pursuing a business degree. Our first encounter happened in the campus coffee shop when we both reached for the last blueberry muffin. Instead of arguing over it, he suggested we split it. That simple act of compromise seemed like a perfect metaphor for what would become our relationship. We dated for 4 years before getting married in a beautiful ceremony on the shores of Lake Michigan. Our early married life seemed blessed. I was working for a design firm downtown while Brian secured a position at a financial consulting company. We complemented each other perfectly. I brought creativity and vision to our relationship, while Brian provided practicality and financial wisdom. We purchased a beautiful apartment on Lakeshore Drive with breathtaking views of the water. Every morning, I would wake up next to him, watching the sunrise over the lake, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. My career was important to me, and Brian always seemed supportive. When I expressed my dream of starting my own interior design business, he encouraged me to take the leap. "You have too much talent to work for someone else," he would say. With his support, I left my steady job and launched Reynolds Interiors. The first 2 years were challenging: irregular paychecks, long hours, and the stress of building a client base from scratch. Brian never complained, even when I had to dip into our savings during lean months. Slowly but surely, my business gained traction. I developed a reputation for blending modern aesthetics with comfortable, livable spaces. My breakthrough came when I designed a downtown restaurant that was featured in Chicago Home magazine. Suddenly, my phone wouldn't stop ringing with new clients wanting the Reynolds touch in their homes and businesses. It was at a Chicago design conference 4 years ago that I met Rebecca Martin. She was tall, blonde, and radiated confidence as she delivered a presentation on marketing for creative professionals. After her talk, I introduced myself, and we immediately clicked. Rebecca had a background in marketing but harbored a passion for interior design. Where I excelled at the creative aspects, Rebecca had a gift for client acquisition and business development, skills I struggled with. Over coffee the next day, we discovered our complementary strengths and similar vision for creating beautiful, functional spaces. Rebecca had been working as a marketing director for a furniture company but was eager to transition into design work. After several meetings and a small collaborative project that went exceptionally well, I offered her a partnership in my growing business. "With your marketing prowess and my design skills, we could build something extraordinary," I told her. Rebecca accepted enthusiastically, and Reynolds Interiors became Reynolds and Martin Design Associates. The partnership proved fruitful immediately. Rebecca revamped our marketing strategy, created a stunning portfolio website, and secured us features in local publications. Our client list grew, and so did our revenue. Within a year of her joining, we had to move to a larger office space and hire 3 additional designers and an administrative assistant. Brian was thrilled with our success. He would join Rebecca and me for celebration dinners after landing major contracts, toasting to our dynamic duo, as he called us. Rebecca became not just my business partner, but a close friend. We would have lunch together every Friday to discuss business strategy, but our conversations would inevitably drift to personal matters. I shared details about my marriage, my hopes for starting a family soon, and my insecurities. I thought she was sharing equally with me about her recent divorce and dating struggles. Life seemed perfect. Brian and I took luxurious vacations to the Amalfi Coast and Bali, documenting our seemingly ideal life on social media. We began discussing having children, even converting our home office into what would eventually become a nursery. Our friends envied our relationship, often commenting on how we seemed as much in love as the day we met. If I'm being honest, there were small signs I ignored. Brian began working later hours, claiming his firm was handling a major acquisition. He became more conscious of his appearance, joining an expensive gym and upgrading his wardrobe without my input. His phone, once casually left on countertops, became permanently attached to his hand, and he changed his passwords. But I trusted him completely. After all, we had built this life together, and Rebecca often assured me that I had the perfect husband. Our design firm continued to thrive. We expanded our services to include commercial spaces and even launched a small line of custom furniture. Brian attended our company events, charming clients and appearing every bit the supportive husband. Rebecca would always make a point to include him in conversations, asking his opinion on business matters in a way that made him feel valued and important. Looking back, I realize how blind I was. The foundation of my perfect life was already cracking beneath my feet, but I was too busy admiring the view to notice. The woman I had welcomed into my business and personal life was already plotting to take everything I had built. And the man who had promised to love me forever was willingly becoming her accomplice. The changes in Brian were subtle at first. Small things that were easy to dismiss individually but, viewed collectively, should have raised alarm bells. Our morning routine of coffee on the balcony dwindled to brief encounters as he rushed out the door. The thoughtful texts throughout the day became scarce. When I would reach for his hand during our evening walks along the lakefront, he would release it moments later to check his phone. "Everything okay with work?" I asked one evening as he frantically typed a message. "Just putting out fires," he replied without looking up. "Anderson needs these projections tonight." I accepted his explanation because I understood work pressure. My own business demanded constant attention, and I appreciated how Brian had supported me through those intense periods. I wanted to offer him the same understanding. Meanwhile, Rebecca's behavior at the office began to shift as well. Our Friday lunches, once sacred time for both business planning and friendship, were repeatedly canceled. "Rain check?" "Client emergency," her text would read, or "deadline for the Wilson project." "Order in without me." During meetings, I noticed her avoiding eye contact when discussing certain clients or projects. When I would mention weekend plans with Brian, she would quickly change the subject or suddenly remember an urgent call she needed to make. The financial discrepancies appeared next. Reviewing our company expenses, I found charges for client dinners on evenings when I knew we had no meetings scheduled. There were receipts for design books and materials delivered to addresses that weren't in our client database. "What's this charge at Volo restaurant?" I asked Rebecca one morning, showing her the company credit card statement. She didn't miss a beat. "Potential client meeting. They're considering us for their lake house renovation." I meant to mention it, but it slipped my mind with the Jordan Hotel proposal deadline. I believed her because I wanted to. The Jordan Hotel was our biggest potential contract yet, a complete renovation of a boutique hotel in downtown Chicago. Securing it would cement our reputation as one of the city's premier design firms. Rebecca was taking the lead on the proposal, and I was grateful for her expertise. Then came the night I discovered the text messages. Brian had fallen asleep on the couch, his phone chiming repeatedly beside him. Thinking it might be important, I glanced at the screen and saw a message preview that made my heart stop. "Miss you already." Last night was. The rest was cut off. The sender was listed simply as R. My fingers hovered over his phone, the temptation to open it overwhelming. Instead, I gently woke him. "Your phone keeps going off," I said, watching his face carefully. The momentary panic in his eyes was unmistakable before he composed himself. "Thanks. Probably Anderson again with those revisions." "The message is from someone named R," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Oh, new client, he replied too quickly. Rebecca referred them to my firm. They're looking for investment advice. I nodded and went to bed alone, lying awake for hours analyzing his reaction. The next morning, I casually mentioned that perhaps we should have Rebecca and some friends over for dinner soon. His response was oddly defensive. Why are you suddenly so interested in spending time with Rebecca outside of work? Don't you see enough of her at the office? I backed off, convincing myself I was being paranoid. After all, our business was thriving. We had just been selected as finalists for the Jordan Hotel contract, and Rebecca was instrumental in getting us that far. Why would she risk our partnership? In an attempt to reconnect with Brian, I planned a surprise date night at the restaurant where we had celebrated our engagement. I arranged for his favorite meal and reserved the same table overlooking the Chicago River. He seemed distracted throughout dinner, checking his phone repeatedly. I thought we could discuss trying for a baby, I said, reaching for his hand across the table. The business is stable now, and we're not getting any younger. His face paled. Morgan, I don't think now is the right time. With your business expanding and my workload increasing, maybe we should wait another year. The abrupt shift in our life plan hurt, but I tried to be understanding. We don't have to decide tonight. I just wanted to start the conversation. When I suggested marriage counseling a week later, just as a preventative measure to ensure we were communicating effectively, his reaction was disproportionately angry. We don't need some stranger telling us how to talk to each other, he snapped. This is just a busy period. It'll pass. At the office, tensions with Rebecca continued to build. She began excluding me from client meetings, claiming they specifically requested her. Projects I had initiated were subtly modified without my input. When I confronted her about these issues, she was always ready with a plausible explanation. I didn't want to bother you with the minutiae, she would say, or I thought we agreed on those changes last week. My anxiety grew to the point where I could barely sleep. I lost weight, and friends commented on how tired I looked. Yet I continued to make excuses for both Brian and Rebecca, unwilling to face what was becoming increasingly obvious. The Jordan Hotel contract became our firm's primary focus. Rebecca insisted on handling most of the preparations, claiming her marketing background was crucial for the final presentation. I agreed, desperate for this win both professionally and personally. If we secured this contract, perhaps everything else would fall back into place. This could take our firm to the next level, Rebecca said during one of our increasingly rare moments of camaraderie. Trust me to handle the presentation. I know exactly what they want. I did trust her. That was my mistake. The truth revealed itself on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was reviewing our quarterly expenses when I noticed something odd, a pattern of hotel charges at the Langham, one of Chicago's most luxurious hotels. These weren't listed as client meetings, nor were they categorized as business accommodations for out-of-town collaborators. They appeared every other Thursday for the past 3 months. My stomach nodded as I cross-referenced the dates with our calendar. Each hotel charge coincided with evenings when Rebecca had claimed to be meeting with the Jordan Hotel executives to build rapport. Brian had also been mysteriously absent on those same evenings, citing late meetings with important clients. I tried calling Brian, but he didn't answer. Next, I called Rebecca's assistant, Maria. Is Rebecca in her meeting with the Jordan Hotel people right now? I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. There was a pause. A mess. Reynolds, Rebecca doesn't have any meetings with Jordan Hotel scheduled today. Their team is in New York this week for a conference. The blood drained from my face. What about the other Thursday meetings with them? The ones she's been having for the past few months. Another uncomfortable pause. I'm not aware of any regular meetings with Jordan Hotel on Thursdays. Rebecca usually blocks that time as personal development on her calendar. I thanked Maria and hung up, my hands shaking. Without allowing myself to overthink, I grabbed my car keys and drove to the Langham Hotel. The elegant lobby was busy with afternoon check-ins. I approached the concierge desk, summoning my most professional demeanor. Good afternoon. I believe my husband may be here for a meeting. Brian Reynolds? He might be with a colleague, Rebecca Martin. The concierge checked his system. Yes, Ms. Martin has a reservation at our restaurant, Travell, for 5:30 p.m. Would you like me to leave a message for them when they arrive? No, thank you. I'll surprise them, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. I found a seat in the lobby, with a clear view of both the hotel entrance and the restaurant. At precisely 5:20 p.m., Brian walked through the revolving doors. My husband of 6 years, the man I had built my life around, was dressed in a suit I had never seen before, carrying a small gift bag from a jewelry store. 10 minutes later, Rebecca arrived. She looked stunning in a red dress that hugged her curves, her blonde hair flowing loose around her shoulders, a stark contrast to the professional bun she wore at the office. Brian's face lit up when he saw her. He stood, kissed her cheek lingeringly, and then pulled her into a tight embrace that lasted far too long for colleagues or even friends. I watched as they were seated at an intimate corner table. I watched as Brian presented her with the gift. A bracelet that she immediately put on, leaning across the table to kiss him. Not on the cheek this time, but fully on the lips. I watched as their hands intertwined on the table, wedding ring glinting on his finger, my ring, symbolizing promises he was actively breaking. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. I drove home in a daze, tears blurring my vision. Our apartment, once my sanctuary, now felt like a museum of lies. Photos of our wedding day mocked me from the walls. The couch where we had cuddled watching movies was tainted. Even our bed felt like a crime scene. I sat in the dark living room for hours, waiting. Brian returned home just after 9, humming to himself as he unlocked the door. He froze when he saw me sitting there. Morgan? Why are you sitting in the dark? He asked, his hand still on the light switch. Where were you tonight, Brian? My voice was eerily calm. Working late. Big client presentation tomorrow. The lie came so easily to him. That's interesting, because I saw you at the Langham with Rebecca about 4 hours ago. His face drained of color. I can explain. Please do, I said, standing up. Explain why you've been lying to me. Explain the hotel charges on our company card. Explain why you were kissing my business partner. It's not what you think, he stammered. Really? Because I think you're having an affair with Rebecca. I think you've both been lying to me for months. I think every late meeting, every canceled lunch, every time you pulled away from me was because of her. Morgan, please. No. My calm finally shattered. No more lies. Tell me the truth for once. What followed was the most painful conversation of my life. After feeble attempts at more denials, Brian finally admitted to the affair. It had been going on for 6 months, half a year of deception right under my nose. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said, as if that made it better. It just did. Do you love her? I asked, needing to know the full extent of his betrayal. His hesitation was answer enough, but he eventually said the words that broke my heart completely. Yes, I'm in love with her. And our marriage? The life we built? Our plans for children. My voice cracked. Brian's response was cruel in its honesty. Our marriage has been stale for a long time, Morgan. You're always working, always focused on your business. Rebecca makes me feel alive again. I was working to build a future for us. I shouted. A future you claimed to want to. I did want it at first, he said. But things change. People change. Apparently they do, I replied, wiping away tears. When did you become someone who could lie so easily? Who could betray the person who has loved you for 10 years? He had no answer for that. I want you to leave, I said finally. Tonight. Morgan, be reasonable. It's almost midnight. We can talk about this tomorrow when we're both calmer. There's nothing left to talk about. You've made your choice. Now leave before I say things I'll regret. Brian packed an overnight bag and left, claiming he would return for the rest of his things later. The click of the door closing behind him felt like the period at the end of a decade-long sentence. The next morning, I went to our office early, determined to confront Rebecca before any staff arrived. She was already there, looking fresh and untroubled, as if she hadn't helped destroy someone's marriage the night before. "We need to talk," I said, closing her office door behind me. She looked up with practiced innocence. "About the Jordan presentation? I've made some last-minute adjustments that I think will really impress them. About you sleeping with my husband." The mask slipped for just a moment before she regained her composure. "I wondered when you'd figure it out." Her lack of denial or remorse stunned me. "How could you do this? I brought you into my business. I considered you a friend. I trusted you." Rebecca leaned back in her chair, suddenly looking like a stranger. "Business is business, Morgan. And Brian is a grown man who made his own choices. Did you pursue him, or did he pursue you?" I needed to understand how this betrayal had unfolded. "Does it matter? We connected in ways you and he never did." Her cruel words hit their mark perfectly. Brian needs someone who understands ambition, who can match his energy. You were holding him back with your cozy, comfortable vision of life. "And what about our partnership? The business we built together?" She smiled coldly. "I've learned everything I need from you, Morgan. Your designs are beautiful but safe. The market is ready for something more daring." She slid a folder across her desk. "My resignation letter. I'll be starting my own firm. Brian will be joining me, of course. We've already secured several clients, including Jordan Hotel." The floor seemed to drop from beneath me. "You stole our clients?" "I secured commitments from clients who prefer my approach," she corrected. "It's just business, nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" I laughed bitterly. "You slept with my husband, destroyed my marriage, and now you're trying to destroy my company. That feels pretty personal." Rebecca stood, gathering her things. "I'll have my lawyer contact you about dissolving our partnership. Brian will be picking up his things from your apartment this afternoon. I'd appreciate it if you made the process as smooth as possible." She walked out, leaving me standing alone in the office we had built together, surrounded by the remnants of all my broken dreams. The week after discovering Brian and Rebecca's betrayal passed in a blur of pain and practical nightmares. Brian returned to our apartment while I was at work and took not only his belongings, but several items we had purchased together, including art pieces I had specifically selected for our home. He left his wedding ring on the kitchen counter with a note that simply read, "I'm sorry it ended this way." No further explanation. No genuine remorse. Just a platitude that could have been applied to a canceled dinner reservation rather than a demolished marriage. I couldn't eat. Sleep became a distant memory. I would lie awake until 4 a.m., replaying every interaction with Rebecca, every recent conversation with Brian, searching for the moment when I should have known. When daylight came, I would drag myself to the office, only to face another disaster. Rebecca hadn't just resigned. She had systematically dismantled our business from the inside out. The Jordan Hotel contract, which would have secured our financial stability for the next year, was officially awarded to her newly formed company, Martin Design Group. The rejection email cited their fresh approach and innovative concepts as deciding factors, concepts Rebecca had developed while working at my firm. But she hadn't stopped there. Within days, 3 of our biggest clients called to cancel their contracts, all citing scheduling conflicts or budget reconsiderations. It didn't take long to connect the dots. Rebecca had contacted them directly, undercutting our prices and promising expedited timelines if they followed her to her new venture. The financial implications were immediate and severe. Without those major contracts, I couldn't maintain our current staffing levels. Maria, Rebecca's assistant, resigned the day after the confrontation, followed by 2 junior designers who had always been closer to Rebecca than to me. I was left with a single design assistant, Tyler, who stayed out of loyalty rather than career advancement. "We'll rebuild," he assured me, though the worry in his eyes betrayed his true thoughts. Your talent is what built this firm in the first place. The business wasn't the only thing collapsing around me. Our social circle fractured along painful lines. Friends we had known for years were suddenly too busy to return my calls. I later learned that Rebecca and Brian had contacted many of them first, sharing a version of events that cast me as the workaholic wife who had neglected her husband and business partner until they, naturally, found comfort in each other. Some friends saw through this narrative, but others embraced it, perhaps finding it more palatable than accepting that two people could be so deliberately cruel. Weekend dinner invitations dried up. The couples we had vacationed with annually suddenly had prior commitments. The isolation compounded my pain. My parents flew in from Denver when I finally broke down and told them everything. My mother, a retired school teacher with a spine of steel, took one look at my gaunt face and tear-swollen eyes and took charge. "You're coming home with us for a few weeks," she declared, already packing a suitcase from what remained of my wardrobe. "I can't leave the business," I protested weakly. "The business will be there when you return," my father said gently. "But if you don't take care of yourself now, you might not be." Their concern frightened me enough to agree to a compromise, 10 days in Denver to regroup. Before leaving, I had to face the humiliating task of explaining the situation to our remaining clients and staff. I opted for a version of the truth that maintained my dignity while acknowledging the reality. Due to an unexpected dissolution of our partnership, Reynolds and Martin Design Associates will be transitioning back to Reynolds Interiors. I wrote in an email that took hours to compose. "While this change brings challenges, my commitment to your projects remains unwavering. I understand if you need to reassess our agreement during this transition." 3 more clients departed after that email. Each loss felt like another betrayal, another piece of my professional identity stripped away. The practical aspects of untangling our business partnership proved nearly as painful as the emotional fallout. Rebecca had hired an aggressive attorney who challenged everything from client ownership to intellectual property rights for designs created during our partnership. Meanwhile, the divorce proceedings began with Brian claiming he couldn't afford the standard spousal support because he was between positions, a convenient situation that emerged only when financial settlements were discussed. My attorney discovered he had transferred significant funds to private accounts in the months before leaving. Fighting these legal battles drained what remained of my savings. The 10 days with my parents helped me physically recover. My mother's home cooking and insistence on regular sleep restored some of my strength, but the return to Chicago brought all the pain rushing back. My apartment, once filled with love and ambition, now felt like a mausoleum. Every corner held memories I couldn't escape. Financial reality forced difficult decisions. With the business hemorrhaging clients and legal fees mounting, I could no longer afford our office space. I downsized to a small studio space in a less prestigious area, working primarily from home to cut costs. Tyler agreed to work part-time until business improved, a kindness I wasn't sure I could ever repay. The lowest point came 6 months after the discovery. After another day of declining a potential client who had heard concerning things about my business stability, I returned home to find an eviction warning. In focusing entirely on saving the business, I had missed 2 mortgage payments. The beautiful apartment overlooking Lake Michigan, the home I had lovingly designed, was now at risk. That night, sitting on my balcony with a glass of wine, I seriously considered closing the business entirely. Perhaps this was the universe telling me to start fresh somewhere else, away from the ghosts of betrayal that haunted every corner of Chicago. I could return to Denver, work for someone else, rebuild slowly in a place unmarked by pain. As I contemplated this option, my phone rang. It was Lisa, a former client whose home I had redesigned 2 years earlier. "Morgan? I hope I'm not calling too late," she began. "I've been meaning to reach out. I heard about what happened with your business partner, and I wanted you to know that I think it's disgusting how she's behaved." I was stunned by her directness. "The reason I'm calling," she continued, is that my sister just purchased a restaurant space downtown. She needs a designer with your exact aesthetic. Someone who understands how to create beauty without sacrificing functionality. Are you taking new clients? For the first time in months, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Yes, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. Yes, I am. That phone call from Lisa marked the beginning of my climb out of the darkness. Her sister Jenna's restaurant project wasn't large enough to solve all my financial problems, but it offered something more valuable, a purpose, a reason to get out of bed each morning, and proof that my professional reputation hadn't been completely destroyed. The morning after Lisa's call, I woke up with clarity I hadn't experienced since before the betrayal. I needed to make fundamental changes if I wanted to survive, both personally and professionally. The first decision was the hardest. I put my beloved apartment on the market. The lake views and spacious rooms had come with an equally impressive mortgage that I could no longer justify. Downsizing would eliminate my largest financial burden and provide operating capital for the business. I found a small but charming rental in Wicker Park, a neighborhood I had always loved for its artistic energy and independent spirit. The apartment was above a bookstore, with exposed brick walls and tall windows that flooded the space with natural light. It was 1/3 the size of my previous home, but felt more authentic to who I was becoming. With the pressure of immediate financial ruin somewhat alleviated, I turned my attention to reimagining my business. Rebecca had been right about one thing: my designs were beautiful but safe. I had been constrained by what would please the most clients rather than what might inspire the right clients. What would you create if you weren't afraid of rejection? Tyler asked during one of our strategy sessions in my new, much smaller home office. The question unlocked something in me. I spent 3 days creating a portfolio that reflected my true design, voiced spaces that blended unexpected elements, embraced imperfection, and told visual stories. I called this collection Phoenix Spaces, Designs for Renewal. While working on Jenna's restaurant, I met Stefan, a talented custom furniture maker who had also been burned by Rebecca. She had commissioned several pieces for the Jordan Hotel project, then canceled the order after getting his designs, only to have them reproduced more cheaply overseas. She's developing quite a reputation, Stefan told me as we selected tables for the restaurant. The design community in Chicago is smaller than people think, and word gets around about who can be trusted. This conversation led to an unexpected alliance. Stefan introduced me to other artisans who had similarly negative experiences with Rebecca. We began informally referring clients to each other, creating a network of creative professionals united by our commitment to ethical business practices. This network became my most valuable marketing tool, authentic recommendations from respected craftspeople. My therapy sessions, which I had begun shortly after discovering the affair, shifted from crisis management to deeper healing. Dr. Winters helped me recognize how my tendency to trust completely had made me vulnerable to exploitation. Trust should be earned incrementally, she explained. You gave both Brian and Rebecca your full trust, based on your hopes rather than their actions. This insight helped me develop healthier boundaries, both personally and professionally. I created clearer contracts with clients, documented all communications meticulously, and learned to recognize warning signs in business relationships. I also joined a support group for people who had experienced betrayal trauma. The stories shared in that circle helped me understand that what happened wasn't a reflection of my worth, but a consequence of others' character deficiencies. One evening, after sharing particularly painful details about finding Brian and Rebecca together, a woman across the circle said something that changed my perspective. They didn't break you, she said firmly. They revealed who they really are. Now you get to decide who you really are. Those words became my mantra as I rebuilt my life piece by piece. 6 months after moving to my new apartment, I secured a small business loan to relaunch Reynolds Interiors with a fresh brand identity. My Phoenix Spaces portfolio attracted clients who appreciated my distinctive approach. The restaurant I designed for Jenna was featured in a local design blog, bringing new attention to my work. Around this time, I received surprising information from Andrea, who had been Rebecca's first assistant before Maria. She contacted me out of the blue after seeing the article about Jenna's restaurant. "I wanted to tell you something that might help," she said when we met for coffee. "Rebecca has a pattern. This isn't the first time she's done this." Andrea revealed that Rebecca had worked at 3 other design firms before mine, each time following a similar strategy: learn everything she could, build relationships with key clients, then leave to start her own venture, taking those clients with her. In one case, she had also become involved with the married owner, leading to a divorce. "I quit when I realized what she was doing at your firm," Andrea admitted. "I couldn't be part of it again, but I was too afraid to warn you." "I'm sorry." Though painful, this information was oddly comforting. The betrayal wasn't something I had caused or could have prevented. It was a calculated strategy Rebecca had perfected over years. As my business slowly stabilized, the divorce proceedings finally concluded. The financial settlement was disappointing, but not surprising. Brian's claims of reduced income and hidden assets resulted in a division that heavily favored him. I signed the papers without argument, valuing my freedom more than financial compensation. Through industry contacts, I learned that Brian and Rebecca had moved in together immediately after leaving me. They had opened their design firm with significant initial success, largely built on clients they had taken from my business and the Jordan Hotel contract. They appeared together at industry events, presenting themselves as Chicago's new design power couple. I avoided these events for months, unwilling to face them publicly. But when a major home design exposition came to Chicago, I knew I couldn't hide forever. I prepared meticulously for my small booth, showcasing my Phoenix Spaces concept with before and after photos of recent projects. The expo was crowded, and I was explaining my design philosophy to a potential client when I sensed a change in the atmosphere. Looking up, I saw Brian and Rebecca walking through the hall, arm in arm. Rebecca was wearing a designer dress I recognized from our shopping trips together. Brian looked thinner, more polished, but somehow less like himself. Our eyes met briefly across the crowded space. I expected to feel the familiar stab of pain, but instead found myself experiencing something unexpected: pity. They had built their relationship on deception and betrayal. What kind of foundation was that for lasting happiness? I returned my attention to the interested client, talking passionately about transformation through design. When I looked up again, Brian and Rebecca had moved on. So had I. 1 year after the separation, Reynolds Interiors was experiencing a renaissance. The restaurant I designed for Jenna had won the Chicago Architectural Digest Space of the Year award, an honor Rebecca had repeatedly mentioned wanting to achieve. The recognition brought a flood of new clients seeking my unique blend of comfort and artistic expression. I had assembled a small but dedicated team: Tyler, now my lead project manager, Alicia, a talented young designer with fresh perspectives, and Damon, who handled our business operations with meticulous attention to detail. We moved to a modest but stylish office in the West Loop, a space I designed to reflect our company values: transparency, creativity, and authenticity. My personal healing progressed alongside my professional rebuilding. The support group remained a cornerstone of my recovery, and I had developed genuine friendships with several members. We celebrated each other's victories, no matter how small, and provided strength during inevitable setbacks. I had even cautiously begun dating again, though I approached new relationships with careful discernment rather than blind trust. Industry rumors about Rebecca and Brian's business began circulating about 15 months after they left. First came whispers about missed deadlines on the Jordan Hotel project, followed by stories of budget overruns and client dissatisfaction. Stefan, who maintained connections throughout Chicago's design community, kept me informed without my having to ask directly. The Jordan Hotel fired them, he told me one evening over dinner. Apparently, Rebecca promised features they couldn't deliver within budget, then tried to charge massive overages. The hotel management brought in an outside consultant who determined her original proposal was never feasible. I took no pleasure in their professional difficulties, but I couldn't help feeling a sense of justice. Rebecca had secured that contract through deception. Perhaps there was balance in the universe after all. More concerning rumors followed. Rebecca's demanding management style had led to high staff turnover. Brian, who had no background in design, was increasingly sidelined in client meetings. Their romantic relationship showed strain in public, with people witnessing tense exchanges at industry events. I focused on my own path, refusing to be defined by their story any longer. When Architectural Digest approached me for a feature on designers reinventing themselves, I spoke honestly about rebuilding after partnership dissolution without mentioning Rebecca or Brian by name. The article generated significant interest in my work, particularly from clients who valued integrity alongside design skill. Then came the night that brought everything full circle. I had spent the evening at a charity auction supporting arts education in Chicago public schools. The event was winding down around 11 when my doorbell rang. Looking through the peephole, I was shocked to see Brian standing there, swaying slightly and looking disheveled. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. "Brian? What are you doing here?" His appearance was jarring, his expensive shirt wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot, his usually perfect hair unkempt. "Can I come in?" he slurred slightly. "Please, Morgan. Just for a minute." I should have sent him away, but curiosity won out. 5 minutes, I said, leaving the door open but not inviting him further than the entryway. Brian looked around my new apartment, clearly surprised by its modest size and artistic character. "This is different," he commented. "What do you want, Brian?" I kept my voice neutral, determined not to show emotion. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it sent an unwelcome pang through my chest. "She left me," he blurted out. "Rebecca, she's gone." I waited, saying nothing. "She's been seeing Richard Harmon, you know, the developer from the North Shore project, for months behind my back." Brian laughed bitterly. "Ironic, right? The cheater gets cheated on. Is that why you're here?" "For sympathy." I asked. "No. Yes. I don't know." He paced my small living room. "She didn't just leave me, Morgan. She cleaned out our joint business account yesterday. Changed the locks on the office. Her lawyer sent me a letter claiming I was only a figurehead in the company with no real ownership rights." His voice broke. "Everything we built, everything we took from you, she took it all." The karmic symmetry was almost too perfect. "That must be painful," I said simply. Brian looked at me with desperate eyes. "I made a terrible mistake, Morgan. The biggest mistake of my life. What we had was real. It was good. I threw it away for nothing." "Not nothing," I corrected him. "A choice. You made a choice, Brian. A choice I regret every day." He stepped toward me. "I miss you. I miss our life. Rebecca is cold, calculating. Everything is about appearance and status with her. With you, it was real. It was home." "Stop." I held up my hand. "You don't get to rewrite history now that things didn't work out for you." "I'm not rewriting anything. I'm finally seeing clearly." He reached for my hand, which I quickly withdrew. "We could try again. I know I don't deserve another chance, but what we had is worth fighting for." For a brief, disorienting moment, I remembered the Brian I had loved, the man who had split a muffin with me in a college coffee shop, who had supported my dreams, who had once been my partner in every sense of the word. But that man was gone, if he had ever truly existed. "No, Brian. We can't go back. You destroyed what we had, and I've built something new from the ashes. Something that doesn't include you. Please, Morgan." Tears filled his eyes. "I have nothing left. She took everything. Now you know how it feels," I said quietly. "The difference is, I rebuilt on my own. You'll have to do the same." "I don't know if I can," he admitted, looking broken. "I'm not strong like you." You don't know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. I quoted the words another woman had shared in my support group. It's time for you to leave. Can we at least talk again? Maybe coffee sometime? The desperation in his voice was palpable. No, Brian. There's nothing left to say. I opened the door. I wish you healing, but it won't come from me. After he left, I sat in my living room feeling strangely peaceful. I had imagined this moment many times, Brian realizing his mistake, begging for reconciliation. But the reality brought none of the satisfaction or vindication I had anticipated. Instead, I felt free. The last chains of what-ifs and might-have-beens had finally broken. Brian's appearance that night wasn't the end of his attempts to reconnect. Over the next few weeks, he called repeatedly, sent emails apologizing and reminiscing about our good times, even had flowers delivered to my office. I maintained my boundaries firmly but kindly, returning the gifts and eventually blocking his number when the calls became excessive. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Rebecca had indeed moved on to a relationship with Richard Harmon, a wealthy developer who could advance her career more effectively than Brian. She had executed her pattern perfectly once again, leaving destruction in her wake. Brian had found temporary work at a furniture showroom, a significant step down from his previous career in finance, while fighting a legal battle against Rebecca for his share of their business assets. I felt no pleasure in his downfall, but I no longer felt responsible for his happiness either. My focus remained on building my business and healing my heart, both projects that were progressing better than I could have imagined on that dark night a year earlier when my world fell apart. 2 years after the night Brian showed up at my door, my life had transformed in ways I never could have anticipated when I was in the depths of betrayal and loss. Reynolds Interiors had not only recovered, but evolved into something far more authentic and successful than my previous firm. We had expanded to a team of 7, specializing in what I now called resilient spaces, environments designed to adapt to life's inevitable changes while maintaining their core integrity. The philosophy that emerged from my personal experience resonated deeply with clients going through their own transitions, divorces, career changes, empty nests, or new beginnings. I developed a reputation for creating spaces that honored both the past and future, helping clients physically manifest their emotional journeys through thoughtful design. My professional transformation was profound, but my personal growth was even more significant. The woman who had once defined herself primarily as Brian's wife and Rebecca's business partner had discovered her own multifaceted identity. I had developed genuine friendships independent of my marriage, pursued interests I had previously neglected, and learned to enjoy my own company. Through therapy and self-reflection, I identified patterns that had made me vulnerable to exploitation. My tendency to trust completely, to see the best in people while ignoring warning signs, had served Rebecca and Brian's deception. I learned to balance openness with discernment, to recognize that healthy relationships, personal or professional, develop gradually through consistent actions rather than grand promises. My relationship with trust evolved into something more nuanced. I no longer saw it as an all-or-nothing proposition, but rather as something earned incrementally through proven reliability and integrity. This perspective allowed me to form new relationships without the paralyzing fear of betrayal that had initially followed my experience. Dating again had been challenging. For months after the divorce finalized, I avoided romantic connections entirely, focusing instead on rebuilding my sense of self. When I finally accepted a dinner invitation from Michael, an architect I met through a professional association, I approached the relationship with cautious optimism rather than the headlong trust one had once given so freely. Michael understood my hesitancy and respected my boundaries. Our relationship developed slowly, built on honest communication and mutual respect. Whether it would lead to a lifelong partnership remained to be seen, but I no longer felt my worth or future happiness depended on any particular outcome. I had learned to find fulfillment within myself first. The most unexpected gift from this painful chapter came during a design industry gala in downtown Chicago. I had attended reluctantly, still uncomfortable with large industry events where I might encounter Rebecca. Instead, I literally bumped into her while getting a drink at the bar. "Morgan," she said, clearly as surprised as I was. "I didn't expect to see you here." Rebecca looked immaculate as always, dressed in an expensive designer gown, but there was something different about her expression, a tightness around her eyes, a forced quality to her smile. "Hello, Rebecca," I replied calmly. "Congratulations on the Lakeside Towers project. I heard you won the bid." A flash of surprise crossed her face, perhaps at my civility or my knowledge of her recent work. "Thank you. And congratulations on your feature in Design Monthly. Very innovative direction you've taken." I detected a note of genuine curiosity beneath her practiced politeness. For the first time, I saw Rebecca clearly. A woman so focused on climbing upward that she never developed authentic connections or genuine satisfaction in her achievements. Each success only drove her toward the next conquest, whether professional or personal. "It's been interesting to discover my authentic design voice," I said. "Sometimes we find our true path only after losing the one we thought we wanted." Rebecca's composure faltered momentarily. "Richard and I are getting married," she announced abruptly, flashing a massive diamond ring. "In June, at the Peninsula." "I wish you happiness," I said sincerely, realizing I meant it. The anger and bitterness I had carried for so long had finally dissolved, replaced by something approaching compassion. Rebecca would always be seeking external validation, moving from one relationship to another, one business conquest to the next. I had found something more valuable: internal peace and authentic purpose. As I walked away, I felt the final weight of that chapter lifting from my shoulders. Rebecca had taken my husband and attempted to destroy my business, but she had inadvertently given me the opportunity to discover my resilience and rebuild something far more aligned with my true self. 2 months later, I received an unexpected email from Brian. Unlike his previous attempts at reconciliation, this message was different, reflective rather than desperate. "I've been in therapy for the past year," he wrote. "I'm trying to understand why I made the choices I did and how I could betray someone who loved me so completely. I don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation. I just want you to know that I recognize the pain I caused, and I am truly sorry. You deserved better." I responded briefly, thanking him for the apology and wishing him well in his healing journey. It felt like closing the final page of a difficult book, acknowledging its impact on my life story without allowing it to determine future chapters. The lessons from this experience have shaped every aspect of my approach to life. I learned that betrayal doesn't define the betrayed, but reveals the character of the betrayer. I discovered that rock bottom can become a solid foundation for rebuilding. Most importantly, I found that our greatest growth often comes from our deepest pain if we're willing to learn from it rather than be destroyed by it. For anyone experiencing similar betrayal, I would offer this hard-won wisdom: trust your instincts when they whisper that something isn't right. Document everything in business relationships. Maintain your own financial independence, even in the most trusting partnerships. Build a diverse support network rather than centering your entire social world around one relationship. But beyond these practical lessons, I would share the deeper truth that emerged from my journey. Your value was never determined by those who failed to recognize it. The people who couldn't remain loyal to you revealed their own limitations, not yours. And while rebuilding after betrayal is agonizing, it offers a rare opportunity to construct a life that truly reflects your authentic self, unburdened by others' expectations or limitations. Today, Reynolds Interiors is expanding to a second location in Milwaukee, a goal I had never imagined possible during those dark days after the betrayal. My relationship with Michael continues to develop with mutual respect and honest communication. I've even begun mentoring young designers, particularly those recovering from professional setbacks or partnership dissolutions. Life doesn't always give us what we want, but sometimes what appears to be our greatest tragedy becomes the foundation for unexpected growth. When Brian and Rebecca betrayed me, they thought they were taking everything valuable from my life. Instead, they inadvertently set me on a path to discovering my own strength, resilience, and capacity for renewal. If you've experienced betrayal like mine, I hope my story gives you hope. The road to rebuilding isn't easy, but the person you become along the way is worth every difficult step. Have you ever had to rebuild after betrayal? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that there is life, beautiful, authentic life, after betrayal. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you directly to what you truly need.